going back one more time to the raid of the last few days, and specifically Reb Kiva Eiger's kasha that we mentioned yesterday, and that is the Mishnah on Daf Yud Gimel Amid Beis said, "Hashoichet b'layla v'chein hasuma sheshachat shchita siksher." The Shulchan Aruch in Hilchos Shchita Perek Siman Aleph Halach Sif Tes says, "Suma lo yishchay lechatchila elo im kein acherim roya noisai ve'im shachat shchita siksher." The shchita is going to be kosher. Freit Reb Kiva Eiger, why is it so pashut in halacha that if a suma shechts, the shchita is going to be kosher? We know there's a shittas Rabbi Yehuda in Shas that holds that a suma is a patim and a mitzvahs. And even though we don't paskin like Rabbi Yehuda, but there's a shittas Rabbeinu Yeruchim that says that we do paskin like Rabbi Yehuda. And the poskim say, Meichosh miyabai, that we're chayish lechumra like the shita of Rabbeinu Yeruchim, that a suma is patim and a mitzvahs. Now, on the tzad that a suma is patim and a mitzvahs, it means he's not chayiv in the laws of shchita. If that's the case, he's not a bar zvicha. If that's the case, Freit Reb Kiva Eiger, just like the Mishnah says on Daf Yud Gimel Amud Aleph, that shchitas oivit koichavim is nevela, and Tosfos and the Rosh and other Rishonim said on Daf Gimel Amud Beis that why is it that shchitas oivit koichavim is nevela? Because it says v'zavachta v'yachalta, and only someone that's a bar zvicha is able to shech, but someone that the Torah did not say you need to shech in order to be able to eat is not someone that's allowed to shech. And being that an Oivik Chavim is not chayiv in the laws of shchita and the isin avela, so it's for that reason he is not kosher to shech. Well, Suma libid Rabbi Yehuda, that's patim and mitzvahs, should also not be a bar zvicha. And if he's not a bar zvicha, Freit Reb Kiva Eiger, then we should have to be chayish al kopanim l'chumra that maybe his shchita is not going to be a good shchita. So how could the Shulchan Aruch say that if acher maroya noisai and he shechted shchita siksheira, what happened to the shita of Rabbeinu Yeruchim? What happened to the shita of Rabbi Yehuda? Rabbi Yehuda, that sum is patim and mitzvahs, the sum is not a bar zvicha, but he's not a bar zvicha, l'chayra, his shchita should not be a kosher shchita. Zok Reb Kiva Eiger, from this kasha it's muchach, that even though Rabbi Yehuda holds that a sum is patim and mitzvahs, it's only from mitzvahs asay that he's going to be pater. But from mitzvahs lois asay he's going to be chayev, which means that a summa is obligated to observe the negative commandment in the Torah of thou shalt not eat in avela. So if he's not letting in avela, that means he needs v'zavachta in order to be v'achalta. He is a bar zvicha, he's a bar zvicha. Zok Reb Kiva Eiger, that's why this is not an issue. And he says it's a raya gedoyla adla ma'od to this idea that even Rabbi Yehuda, who holds sumas patim and mitzvahs, only from mitzvahs asay, it's not from mitzvahs lois asay. Now as we've mentioned over the years, Kiva Eiger says this, Shagasarya says there's a lot of gedoyla achreinim all had rayas mikanu lekan. But in the world of Reb Kiva Eiger, this was a raya she'ein of tshuva. From the fact that we allow a summa to shecht, and we're not chayish for shittas Rabbi Yehuda, Vaisais, there is no shittas Rabbi Yehuda when it comes to shchita. He's not a bar zvicha. The teretz is he's only excluded from aseis. He's included in lois aseis. The isin avelos or lois asei. Hence, there's no question he's going to be a bar zvicha. Now, yesterday we spoke a little bit about this kasha from Reb Kiva Eiger, and we wondered out loud that Kiva Eiger had a chap that summa the Rabbi Yehuda should not be a bar zvicha. Every cheresh shoyt of a katan, where the halach is that if acherim imdem al gaban, b'di'eved, the halach is the shchita is going to be a kosher shchita. Cheresh shoyt of a katan are also patim and mitzvahs, like suma libid Rabbi Yehuda, and afilu hachi they're considered a bar zvicha. The teretz is whatever the teretz is. So what's fragt Reb Kiva Eiger? Suma Rabbi Yehuda. Why is it different than a cheresh shoyt of a katan? And l'chura, whatever the teretz is going to be for a cheresh shoyt of a katan, why we view him as a bar zvicha, that's why we would view a suma as a bar zvicha as well. So we said yesterday, and maybe it's emes, and maybe it's even pashit, that could be, Reb Kiva Eiger understood that the reason cheresh shoyt of a katan are considered bar zvicha, even though they're patim and mitzvahs, is like the Yehuda said in his first tshuva in Madura Tinyana, and Kimavur in the Prima Godam's understanding of the shach in Hilchos Shchita Siman Aleph of Kanach of Zayin. And that is because even though the cheresh shoyt of a katan kishal atzman are not obligated to keep the laws of shchita, but at the same time there's a lav in the Torah of lois sachilum lahazir gedolim al aktanim, and being that the katan is included in the parasha of Zvicha, from the standpoint that the gadol in his parasha of Zvicha was told that this relates to the katan as well, because you're not allowed to be a v'achalta, you can't be meichel the katan unless you are going to shecht first. Kumtois, that would be enough to make him into a bar Zvicha. If that's the case, yesh loymar, that is a lav in the Torah of leis achilim, it could be that's only by a cheres shoyt of a katan, who are patim in mitzvahs, but the reason they're patim in mitzvahs is because they're not b'nei das. They don't know how to be nizah by themselves. You could have das, so you be careful for them. But assume the Rabbi Yehuda that's patim in mitzvahs is not patim in mitzvahs because he has no das. Assume that's patim in mitzvahs is patim based on limudim. He's be'etzem patim in mitzvahs. And if that's the case, despite the fact that he has das, the Torah says don't worry about it. You can eat nevela. Well, if the Torah told him he can eat nevela, so why would the Torah now be mazer the gadol or somebody else and tell him you make sure he's allowed to eat it himself? What, I have to be more careful for him than he needs to be careful for himself? If that's the case, the Yeshloimer, Reb Kivega wasn't bothered with cheres shoyt of a katan, because Reb Kivega understood the mahalach cheres shoyt of a katan is based on leis achilim. But Reb Kivega is being megala to us in this kasha is that leis achilim, it doesn't pass by asuma. And if it doesn't pass leis achilim by asuma, so if that's the case, he's not a bar zvicha because he's not chayv mitzvahs. He's not a bar zvicha mitzad leis achilim. You don't have the noid b'yuda. You don't have the prima godim's beer in the shach. So if that's the case, what's takab pshat that asuma is considered bar zvichas? Reb Kivega muzayin that asuma be'etzem is chayv in all mitzvahs. Loisa say, and this is a raya gedola to that shita. But as it relates to the ikar kasha of Reb Kivega, maybe we can say al derech pilpul gedola, based on Ray that we actually spoke about not so long ago. We mentioned this in Masechtes Menachos Daf Tzadik Gimel. It was a shtickle Torah for the ages from Hagoyin Hagadol, the Baal Shailos Teshuvas Abnei Tzion, Rabbi Tzion Kohn, the Saint Peter Ruv Zechroinu Levracha. And that is as follows. The Shoylem Meshiv, in Shailos Teshuvas Shoylem Meshiv, Madura Kama Chelik Beis, brings that Hine, Sha'alni Echad Me HaMelamdim Lahayel. So one of the Lamdim asked him Gevaldige Kasha. That is, we know that Rabbi Yehuda has a shita that sumas patim in mitzvahs. According to many achronim, when we say Rabbi Yehuda's patim in mitzvahs, it means only from mitzvahs aseh. But avada from mitzvahs loy saseh, he's going to be chayiv. One of those achronim is the Reb Kivega. Shal ze anu danu. But al kopanim, this lamdin told the Shoylem Meshiv that we know that Rabbi Yehuda sheet of summa patim and mitzvahs, according to many shitas, is dafka from mitzvahs saseh, but not from mitzvahs loy saseh. So as soon as patim from mitzvahs saseh, he's not patim from mitzvahs loy saseh. If that's the case, he said, I have a bamba kasha. Why? The Rambam in the beginning of Hilchas Tmura says that if somebody violates the Issa Tmura, he gets malchus. Says the Rambam, you get malchus, isn't it a lav she'im by maisa? Tmura is something that's done b'dibur. So the Rambam, that yes, it is, but the Gemara says in different places that ordinarily you don't get malchus for lav she'im by maisa, chutz mi nishba meimer or makalu. This is one of the exceptions, that's why you get malchus. But the Rambam says I have another problem. Isn't Tmura always a lav shenita klaseh? And the reason is because if somebody violates this Tmura, the Torah says vayu Tmura seyir kodesh, and being that the kedusha schal, that's called nita klaseh. And if that's the case, break the Rambam, why do you get malchus for the lav of Tmura? Why is it not a lav shenita klaseh? And the Rambam was mis yaseid or yasoy gadol. Says the Rambam, the only time you say lav shenita klaseh is if the lav and the aseh are shava, if they're 100% equal. If, however, the lois aseh and the aseh are not shava, so the lois aseh is more inclusive than the aseh, then you don't say lav shenita klaseh. Says the Rambam, if a tzibur or shutfin would be over the issa tmura, they would violate the lav of Tmura. But the halach of Hayu Tmura Sayir Kodesh, based on drushes, the Gemara says in Masechtes Tmura, the Tmura itself wouldn't be chal. Kumto is the lav of Tmura is more inclusive than the asay of Tmura. And anytime you have a lav and asay that are not shava, because one is more inclusive than the other, you don't say lav shenitik laseh. This is the asay of the Ram. So the Lamdin went and he told the Shoylem Meshiv, he said, if that's the case, according to Rabbi Yehuda, every every lav and asay are not shava. Because every lav in the world includes a summa, and every asay does not include the summa. And if that's the case, li Rabbi Yehuda, how could you ever have a lav shenita glasay? The Rambam says the only time you say lav shenita glasay is if the lav and the asay are one and the same. But if it's not one and the same, like in the case of Tamur, you don't have it. Yet the lav shenita glasay, li Rabbi Yehuda, is not shava, because the lois asay is more inclusive than the asay. The lois asay, all 365 include the summa, but the asay is all 248 don't include the summa. And if that's the case, how could it be Alibid Rabbi Yehuda that there's something called lav shenita glasay? And he went weiter and he said, "There ain't loimar. Don't tell me maybe Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold of lav shenita glasay, because the Gemara says throughout Shas that if someone's over the iser noiser, like siru mimenu ad boiker, there's no malchus, and it's a machlokes tanam why. And Rabbi Yehuda says that you want to know why there's no malchus by the lav of noiser, because it's nita glasay, because the Torah says that whatever's left over in the morning, go ahead and burn. So kumtois, being that the iser noiser is nitik to that say it's reifas noiser, it's for that reason not live glasay. And who said it? Rabbi Yehuda said. So we know Rabbi Yehuda holds something called lav shenita glasay. Rabbi Yehuda holds sumas patim and mitzvahs, which means only from Mesa, not from lavin. So if that's the case, has the shtim with the Rambam Shita. L'chayru Rabbi Yehuda toichiach, not like the Rambam in the beginning of Hilchas Tamura. This is the kasha. Said the same Peter v'yesh loim ubehektem. Tosfos in Masechtas Menachos Daf Tzad the Gimel asks. The Gemara over there brings a limud that noshim can't do smicha. What do I need a pasuk to tell me that a woman can't do smicha? The Gemara says teikef lesmicha shchita, which means smicha had to happen right before shchita. Shchita is an avodah, b'yom tzavsos b'nei Yisrael hakavas karbanei. It had to be done dafka during the day. If shchita had to be done during the day, that means smicha also had to be done during the day. Couldn't be done at night. If that's the case, the mitzvah seish has man garama. Women are parted from all mitzvah seish has man garama. So why do I need a pasuk to tell me that women are excluded from smicha? Tepek it's the mitzvah seish has man garama. The truth is, Tosfos and Kedushin Daf Lamed Vavam and Aleph asks an expanded version of this kasha. The Mishnah over there brings a whole bunch of different avodas that women are excluded from, and the Gemara brings up pasuk and a makar for each one of those avodas. Freit Tosfos, why do I need a makar for this and a makar for that and a makar for the third thing and the fourth and the fifth? Tepek all avodas had to be done during the day, and women are pater from all mitzvahs esesh as mangaram. So the same Peter brings a teretz that we've mentioned many times over the years. The Malbim says it in his Artz HaChaim, and the Ma'ayin HaChochma says it in his classic Pirush on Sefer HaMitzvahs, and that is, what's the makar that women are parted from mitzvah seish as man garama? The Gemara says in Masechtas Kedushin Daf Lamed Daled, it's because we know women are parted from Talmud Torah. Talmud Torah is iskish with tefillin. Thus, women are parted from tefillin. Tefillin is iskish l'kol ha-Torah kula. So we say that any mitzvah that is doime to tefillin, women are also going to be parted from. Tefillin is a mitzvah seishes man garama, because tefillin is only noig by yom and it's not noig on Shabbos v'yontif. So based on that, the Gemara says we know that women are parted from all mitzvah seishes man garama. Said the Malbim, the Ma'ayin HaChochma, what emerges is that the makar that women are parted from mitzvah seishes man garama is a davar halamed behekish that's being chayzer umalamed behekish. We know from Kodshim that when it comes to Kodshim there's a rule. Davar halamed behekish is einay chayzer umalamed behekish. So these two go'inim said that yesh loimar, even though it's true women are always parted from mitzvah seishes man garama, but yesh loimar Kodshim shiny. You know why? Because the whole makar to mitzvah seishes man garama is a davar lama behekish being chayz lama behekish, and by kachim we know we can't, and based on the fact that by kachim we can't, so by kachim we can't apply the halacha mitzvah seishes man garama. Now it's a little bit of a chiddush, because normally you would say that davar lama behekish is in a chayz lama behekish, but kachim, that's when it's a kachim de gehekish. So I have a kachim de gehekish, so it doesn't work in the sugi of kachim. But if I have a global hekish, that's not kachim, it's kalateir guladik, that already I've established yuchsa, right? Like the haflan, the end of the first parak of Ksubis that we spoke about earlier in the week. But when I have a kalateira kula diga hekish that works for everything, and I want to now apply it to kachim, you would think you could. But the Malbim and the Ma'ayin HaChochma, two epic 19th century goyim, both were mechaven to the same var, and they said to be miyashav Tosfos kasha efshek and minzogin, that no, that davar lom hekish inu chayz malam hekish means not only where it's an exclusive hekish for kachim, but even if it's a global hekish, I can't even apply it, I can't even shtel it to when it comes to the world of kachim. And if that's the case, it's miyushav Tosfos kasha. The teretz is not by kachim, because kachim doesn't have mitzvah man garama, because by kachim davar lom hekish inu chayz malam hekish. So St. Peter said a davar niflan, a davar charif adamai. He said, what's the makar to Shittas Rabbi Yehuda that assumes patim and mitzvahs. Mamish the sugi we're learning. What is the makar? The shitas Rabbi Yehuda that assumes patim and mitzvahs. The Gemara says above a kamadaf pei zayin amar aleph. My time of the Rabbi Yehuda. It says v'shaftu ha'eda ben hamaka uben goyel adam ala mishpatim ha'ela. And we learn from there kol sheyeshnei b'maka b'goyel adam yeshnei b'mishpatim. Kol she'ena b'maka b'goyel adam ena b'mishpatim. Someone that's included in the parasha of Ritzech b'shoigig, he's included in all mishpatim, all choshe mishpat. But someone that's excluded from the parasha of Ritzech b'shoigig is excluded from all mishpatim. A summa is excluded from the parasha of Ritzech b'shoigig because it says b'loi re'us, and it means someone who usually could see, not punkti didn't see. And being that a summa can never see, so it's for that reason he's excluded. But the Gemara goes weiter, and the Gemara says, okay, so I know from there that a summa is pater from mishpatim, but how do I know that a summa is pater from mitzvahs? Because there's another pasuk. It says v'zois ha-mitzvah Chukim v'mishpatim. Kol sheyeshnei b'mishpatim, yeshnei b'mitzvos v'chukim. V'chol she'enei b'mishpatim, enei b'mitzvos v'chukim. Someone that's included in mishpatim is included in mitzvos and chukim. But if not, not. Said the same Peter Ruf. You know what the makar Tashitas Rabbi Yehuda of Summa Patim and mitzvahs is? It's a davar alamed behekish that's being chayzim alamed behekish. I learn mishpatim from Akkah, and then I learn mitzvos v'chukim from mishpatim. Lefi the Malbim and the Ma'ina Chachma that said that whenever you have a davar alamed behekish, it can't be chayzim alamed behekish, even where it's not exclusively a kachim de gehekish, even where it's a kalateir kula de gehekish. But I can't even apply it and relate it and shtel it to the kachim application. If that's the case, what would emerge is that even though Rabbi Yehuda holds that asumas patim and mitzvahs are bekachim shiny, when it comes to kachim, over there it would already be different. So said the same Petru, what was the Lamdan's kasha? Lamdan asked the Shaila Mesh, Rabbi Yosef Shal Natanzen. He asked him, he said, I don't understand. He said, Rabbi Yehuda holds that sumas patim and mitzvahs. And Achreinim say that it's only from mitzvahs essay, it's not from mitzvahs lois essay. Which emerges then as meaning that according to Rabbi Yehuda, every assay on lois assay are not shava. The lois assay includes the summa, whereas the assay doesn't include the summa. If that's the case, I'll leave it to Rabbi Yehuda. How could there ever be a lav shenitik assay? The Rambam says in Perak Al V'Loch Al Filchus Tmura that whenever the assay and the lois assay are not shava, you don't say lav shenitik assay. Like Rabbi Yehuda, every lois assay and assay are not shava. The ain't loy that Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold of lav shenitik assay, because Rabbi Yehuda himself said with regards to noiser, lois asir menu abaykus nishtokay malkus. You know why? Because it's a lav shenitik say, Zok the same Peter, you know what the teretz is? The Malbim and the Ma'ina Chachma. It's because Kachim shiny. And being that Leisasir Menuad Biker is a lav of Kachim, by the lav of Kachim, there the Sum is Chayiv in the lav and he's Chayiv in the Essa also. If he's going to be Chayiv in the lav and the Essa, comes out by Kachim, they are Shava. If they're Shava, over there it's going to be different. If you would find a place, Rabbi Yehuda holds lav and Nitik say where it's not Kachim, that would be a good kasha. But what's your Makar? Your Makar is Kachim. When it comes to Kachim, over there it's going to be different. So maybe I'll pee this pulpo. We could just add one more anaf, and that is Rabbi Kivega asked a blitzadige kasha. He said, "A summa is allowed to shechten halacha." What happened to Shitas Rabbi Yehuda? Rabbi Yehuda holds summas patim ben mitzvahs. So like Rabbi Yehuda, he shouldn't be a bar zvicha. And don't tell me cheresh shoyt of a katan, because there's like sachilim like the Neit B'Yehuda said. There's like sachilim like the Prima Gadim learned up in the Shach. But summa doesn't have a loy sachilim. So if there's no loy sachilim, he's not a bar zvicha. You know what the teretz is? He is a bar zvicha. He's a bar zvicha. What are you talking about? Assume is patim and you mean loisa? And I don't mean loisa says. He's a bar zvicha. Where is a bar zvicha? You know where he's a bar zvicha? In Shchitas Kachim. That's where he's a bar zvicha. He's a bar zvicha. The fifth mitzvah in the Torah is the mitzvah to shech the carbon Pesach. That's where he's a bar zvicha. V'shachat es ben habakar. That's where he's a bar zvicha. If you're going to tell me that the whole Shitas Rabbi Yehuda is not true when it comes to Kachim, Mami Yusuf Kushis Reb Kiva, you want to know where you find these bar zvicha? You find these bar zvicha when it comes to Kachim. Because like the Malbim and the Ma'ina Chachma said, to answer Tosfos Kasha throughout Shas, and like the same Peter Ruf said, to answer the Melamed L'Hoyel's Kasha in Shayel Shuvas Shoyel Meishev, maybe we could also say to answer Reb Kiva Eger's Kasha that Kachim Shani.